Hi, I'm Katrina Johnson from NewSky Consulting. I'm the director there. And in this episode, you can expect some stories around cockroaches, find out what a raff brat is, find out how to step into your true, authentic leadership and what it takes to not lose yourself in the process. I can't wait to share all this with you and Prosper.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your number one destination for exclusive insights into the journeys of remarkable individuals shaping our world. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're going to be diving into a story that is as inspiring as it is transformative. Now, Katrina, how are you doing today?
I'm really well, thanks, Prosper. Really well. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, absolutely, I am. I've been waiting for this for quite a while. I know we've been chatting about this for a minute now, and I'm glad we finally found the time to sit down. Now, for those that are watching right now, you're going to notice that I'm a little bit starstruck, and I'm going to be shaking in my boots because I hold Katrina to the highest esteem. Not only has she become a beacon for authentic leadership, but she actually helps other people overcome challenges so they can create a thriving business and find balance in their lives with coaching and support to their goals. Now, that is not something she just dreamt of or thought was a good tagline. She comes with over 25 years of experience, including founding and leading a purpose-driven, not-for-profit organization. And Katrina has then gone on to dedicate her life to creating environments where people feel valued, seen, and empowered. And her journey does not just start from, that not-for-profit. She was actually what they call a RAF brat. She's going to be letting us know what that entails. And that's the Royal Air Force of Australia there. And that's part of her upbringing that really shapes who she has become. And now she has become a champion for inclusive leadership. And I think this is nothing short of extraordinary. Given the times we're living in these days, it's not easy being a leader, and so many people really depend on you showing up in the best way you can. And that's what Katrina is here to champion. But while I was digging up stuff, I did come across some cockroaches in her story, and not that they were moving around, but did you know that Katrina once won a public speaking competition with a speech about cockroaches? And if she can make cockroaches that captivating, then imagine the insights that she has for us today. Now, Katrina, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. Tell us a little bit about your journey, especially being brought up in the Army or the Air Force that you were.
Thank you, Prosper. What an introduction. That was phenomenal. Yes, cockroaches. I was 17 at the time for that. No, 16 when I won that award. So let's see if I can try and be as captivating today. Yes, I was a raff brat. Very much a raff brat. So if you grew up with parents in the Air Force, then you know what a raff brat is, and that's someone who has a parent in the Air Force. You move around a lot, and they call them raff brats because they really didn't have a good reputation at that time. It wasn't probably an easy learning, living experience being a child of a RAF family back when I was. So, I'm in my 50s now, so that was quite some time ago. But it's about moving around a lot. We moved around a lot, which meant that we had to pack up everything, all our belongings, leave friends and close friends that we'd made, communities that we were part of, and move into new communities all the time. And it's almost like starting over each time. So, yeah, that's what a RAF brat is. And my brothers and I were that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up with that. I can only imagine, because if you're leaving a place in like a short amount of time, it would be maybe a waste of energy trying to connect with people in that area, knowing you are going to leave them and never be able to see them ever again. But obviously, this constantly moving, adapting, how did these early experiences then shape your approach to leadership and community building?
Yeah, that is a great question, Prosper. It's one of probably the defining things about me in terms of how I lead and how I've developed my career over time. So when you grow up knowing that you are going to have to move within a space of 1, 2, 3 or 4 years, I think the longest we lived anywhere before my father left the Air Force, retired, was 4 years. And so you know that every time you've got to move and you've got to go somewhere and develop new friendships, and you're young, you know, like this is from the time that I was born. So you're in a learning cycle all the time about how do I connect with people, how do I make friends, and you learn a lot about fitting in, which isn't optimal. And you learn about who are your people and how do you connect with people and meet them where they're at. So, and community, building community wherever you go, creating those people around you that you feel like you belong to. So it taught me a lot about the difference of fitting in versus truly belonging and finding your people. It taught me a lot about being me, rather than trying to be someone I'm not, and the difference that made in terms of the people and friends that I attracted and the friends that I'd made. And those were the friends that I continued to stay connected to. Back in the day, it was writing letters, you know, the old snail mail. We used to become like pen pals and we would write letters, and now we're connected through the joy of, you know, Facebook and those sorts of things. So it taught me a lot about people. It taught me about observing people. You go somewhere new and it's not like you just jump in. You spend a little bit of time observing the lay of the land and seeing how things work around here. What is the culture that I'm walking into? What is the, you know, for me it was school environments and new friends, and then figuring out who's who in the zoo, and then making those connections to build those friendships. And I think in terms of leadership, what that taught me is the importance of learning about people, taking the time to find out and understand other people, getting to know them, and then building that community around me. So yeah, lots of learnings, lots of, you know, not always easy either, the concept of making new friends all the time, but it equipped my brothers and I really, really well to be able to build relationships, build friendships with people that were genuine, that were supportive and real, and that was reciprocal. So it was really taught us about how do we honour the people that we're meeting. Yeah, does that make sense, Prosper?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for taking us through that. You see, Katrina, I've got girls, okay? One is 10 and one is 6. And while you're talking, I actually observed something that normally happens, especially when they have like a sleepover or they have a friend over. They don't want me anywhere near what they're doing. Like it's a loving kind of way. Go away, Dad, go away. So I can imagine this is exactly what might be the experience where people that are already established in the communities you're going to, if you'd had to go in, that's the kind of sort of energy you be met with.
Yeah, you're going into established relationships, and quite often the communities we went to were RAF communities, so we lived close to different RAF bases, And so they had their own communities. There was one in particular that I lived in called Rath-Base Pierce, which was in this tiny place called Bullsbrook. And that was a very close Rath family community, as well as some sort of rural country families. So it had its own kind of culture that we were walking into as well, whereas other communities I went to where we weren't living so close to base and the schools weren't so close to base, like when I lived at Springwood in the Blue Mountains, those communities were dispersed in terms of the RAF connections. So they were people, people who lived in those communities and weren't part of the RAF community. So that was a different culture again altogether. Those people often grew up together and went to school together. So you're infiltrating infiltrating is really, that's not a great word to use, but you're coming into an environment where there's really strong established groups. And, we know kids too, young people, they had their own posses and, groups and all those sorts of things. So you had to go into those environments and really figure out, where do I belong in all this? And that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of knowing who you are and figuring that out. And you're already a kid trying to figure out who on earth you are anyway. So it was character building alongside deeply reflecting on, well, who am I and who do I want to be, and really tuning into that. And at the same time, my brothers and I became very, very close because we were each other's longest time friends. All three of us would go to a new community and have to have new friends. So our foundational friend group were each other. And that has carried on through our life. And we continue to be like a solid team and friends. And I do say to people that my very first team was me and my brothers. We were that foundational group that we kept coming back to, and supporting each other.
Absolutely. I can only
imagine. A really good experience.
Fantastic. I can only imagine, because that's who you're exposed to most of your life, and in between the times you're assimilating and before you infiltrate, to take words.
Yeah. That's a terrible word. Infiltrate. Whoa.
Whatever the terminology is, but before you then sort of assimilate, and before you know it, you're already uprooting yourself, going on to the next base and things like that. But just on this, just maybe for a little longer, would this then have made it easy for not necessarily yourself, but maybe a rough brat to really concentrate on your schooling, because there's not that many distractions coming from all the other already, say, established friendship groups and, people that would influence you or derail you from...
that is an interesting question. I've never had that one before, Prosper. Do for me personally, I actually really struggled in my primary school years. I think that it was quite disruptive to education to move around because each state had different curriculums. So I went from a Wagga Wagga, where I was in grade 4, and went to Western Australia and was put in grade 6. So, memories are just flooding back right now. So that was really hard because I skipped a grade because of my age, and I went into a class where all the kids knew how to do running riding, and running riding in one state looks different to another, particularly Western Australia. And I couldn't read what they were putting on the board and things. And I remember, and this story stays deeply with me because I think it haunted me for quite some time. I remember watching, the teacher handing out stuff. I remember my teacher's name and everything. And everyone started working, and I just sat and looked at the piece of paper and just watched everyone else get to work. And the teacher was going around checking on work, and she got to me and she said, "What are you doing?" She said, and I said, I don't know. And she said, what do you mean you don't know? I said, I don't know. And she said, are you stupid or something?
Wow.
And so, and I think for her, it was just, I've been put in this class and there was an expectation that you could do the work. And I actually thought I was stupid for quite some time. So I had to learn fast how to get up to speed. And thankfully, I had my father, who was my stepfather at the time. So we were also going through transitions in family life as well. My mother and my mother, we had to leave my father, and she was with my stepfather, and he was my true father. And so we're going through other stuff as well. But he was such a good man that he, made sure that he worked with me very diligently to bring me up to speed. And I struggled in maths and writing and English and everything. So caught up. So when you talk, did I get to focus? Yes, because I had to. But it was also a struggle because I was behind, so far behind. And then you would move again. So I went from grade 7 in Western Australia over to the Blue Mountains, where it was where the next grade was high school. And I'd never experienced high school. I'd experienced a small country town with small classes where high school and primary were together. It was very small. This school was huge, and I spent the first few weeks of that getting lost, going from one class and trying to find the other. I'd never had to do that before, and I had no friends, or those sorts of things. So that story was very much around, all right, I had a map for the school. There was all these blocks. I had to move class for the first time, each class. And I remember coming home from school, and my mum said, how was your day? And my older brother, Bevan, he was also in high school. My younger brother was in primary school, so he wasn't even at the same school as us. And my older brother's going, oh, yeah, it was this, that, and the other. He was at the grunting age where you don't really talk much. And my mum's like, and how was yours? I said, it took me so long to get from one class to the other, Mum. I was always running late. She's like, why? And I said, because I got lost. So the only way I could find my way around this school was to go back to point A and then navigate from point A to wherever the class is. So then from that class, I'd go back to point A and navigate to my next class. So the only way I could figure out how to get from one class to the next. And along with that, you're building friendships, you're figuring out who's who in the zoo. You're trying to keep up with the curriculum, which looked very different to the curriculum of the school you came from. So it was hard, but I really look back at those times and feel like it shaped me and prepared me well for adult life. I actually excelled in high school. And did very, very well, and really started to then step into a lot of leadership roles and communities. And I really came into my own in terms of how I built relationships with people, the people I surrounded myself with, and how I treated others, knowing what it's like to not be included. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you didn't consider a career in the army, because that whole getting lost, and would not have ended well.
No. To this day, I am really not good at map reading. My husband and I's first overseas trip, when there was no GPS systems, was, those big maps that you'd open up and, he'd be going, where are we going? I'm like, go left. He's like, that's not the way. So, I'm still not good at map reading. So I'm very grateful for GPS. My goodness, I do love the GPS. Yeah. Not a skill.
But as you were obviously coming of age and growing up, there is that moment in life where maybe things would have been going well, and that's where you actually did well in your speech. Tell us, why cockroaches? Was it because you guys moved a lot and you really scared the bejeebers off the cockroaches, or what was going on?
Oh, look, it really, how embarrassing. This is how embarrassment. This was nothing fancy at all. So by this time I was back in Queensland and going to the school that I was to see out. I was in grade 9. So we went from Blue Mountains to Queensland, and I'm in grade 9. And I'd started to do speech and drama, and I loved it. And this was in the Stedfords, so the Queenslander Stedfords. And I started to do debating and speech, public speaking, and develop my public speaking. Really started at school. And they liked us to do a Stedford. So I thought, yeah, I'll do this at Stedford. What am I going to talk about? And I considered myself, I was born in Bankstown, New South Wales, so I considered myself a Blues supporter when it comes to rugby league. And I was in Queensland, and they're cane toads and I'm a cockroach. And then I also found that living in Queensland when we first moved here, I'd never seen such big cockroaches in my life. Like just, those ones that fly in, big cockroaches. And I remember, and we had no fly screens on our first time in Queensland. So I remember, like, at night I would hear this, and then I'd be like, oh my goodness, it's a cockroach. Oh my goodness. And I'd flick on the light, and it's like I was engaging in combat with these cockroaches. And I remember my speech opened pretty much, and I thought, I have to write a speech about this. And then I related it to, life experiences, school experiences and things like that. I can't remember the whole speech, but the very beginning was very much around and this noise, and I whacked on the light, and I'm saying all these, words about this cockroach, and then I whacked this cockroach, and it crunched under the force of my, it was, it was like Mortal Kombat, this description of this cockroach. And I really didn't think when I did that speech, because it was for an age group of 16 to 20-year-olds. So I was on the youngest, and I was up against some very polished speakers, like grammar school speakers who had had some speaking training and support, which I never had. And I had my twang voice, my, gunners and goings, and I didn't really speak very eloquently. And I won this Stedford, and I was so proud of it, and I had so much fun delivering it. So yeah, that's my memory of that. I still have the trophy today, and I show my kids. So it was a fun speech, and I was horrified and shocked that I won, because some of the other speeches were just so serious and eloquent, and I was like, I'm really not in the right place here. But then I won, which taught me a lot about connecting with, again, it's that connecting with audience, expression, connecting with people, and the human element, I think, that I brought to that story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun.
You know what it is? I kind of felt you come alive when you were talking about this story, because you went into that moment, and you know what I mean? What that depicts is, first of all, your ability to tell a good story, and your ability to really, follow through with parts that are incredible about storytelling. Now, yes, you've had drama coaching and teaching, and you've done debate and things of that nature, but how has storytelling actually played a role in your leadership journey?
Yeah, and I don't think I was fully aware of my ability to storytell and the impact that it had until the idea of storytelling in marketing became such a popular subject in the marketing world and in entrepreneurial world and business. So I know that when I started my not-for-profit and engaging in getting funding and engaging families and government officials, that I really needed to tell the story of the young people that we supported. And it served me very well there. It was also about telling the story and sharing a vision with my team about this is my vision for the young people we support and their life, and the story about that, and their part in it and their role, and creating movements, you know. So I think storytelling as a leadership tool supports you in being able to bring to life a vision and bringing people along the journey with you, where they see themselves in that story as their own hero as well. So it's not something that I think I consciously did as a strategy. I think it was something that came along with me to make sure that I could create the movement and bring people on the journey. But I don't think I did it consciously. I don't think I'm that smart, Prosper. I think it just came quite natural because I wanted to achieve something that I was heavily invested in and was important to me, and I wanted to share it with others. And I guess the only way I knew how to do that was to tell it in terms of my story or a story. Yeah. I don't think I was that conscious of it. But I am aware of it now. Yeah.
Half of the things that happen to us, we don't necessarily are cognizant of that it is actually happening.
Yeah, I agree.
The water that they swim in. But you did mention along the journey, you were about championing, those that seemingly were marginalized or were not included along the journey. While I was investigating you to come on the show, you did have a run-in with the authorities at school, and that would have been the starting point of you really being a champion to a worthy cause. Maybe care to tell us the details of that
story? So I did find myself throughout my schooling, I tended to be there, an advocate for people who were not included. I didn't know whether they were people with disabilities or, had different ways of being or not. I just noticed that they weren't included, or they were teased, or they were bullied. And it's something I never did not stand for. And so I would always tend to take the cause or support the people or advocate. And so when I was in the same school where I was doing the speech for the cockroaches, I became school captain, and I took that role very seriously. And we were told at one stage, because it was a public school, and kids being kids, they were, back in the day, they might have been, a couple of people were smoking in the toilets, and toilet rolls were getting flushed. Terrible stuff. And the principal at the time, he threatened the whole girl grade, like the grades that access that toilet, with, right, that's it. If this continues and you continue to flush toilet rolls down the toilet, we are removing all the doors from the toilet. No, not on my watch, says Katrina. No, this is not happening. This is a violation of our privacy. And, we are not all flushing the toilet rolls down the toilet. Why should we all be penalised for that? Absolutely not. And the principal at the time was very dogmatic that this will happen, and you've only got so long until that changes. And it's like, no, that's not fair. How is that fair? And it's against our privacy. So I thought, no, there's got to be another way to address this problem, and I'm not having this. So I went around and I spoke to all the girls from grade 9 that I could actually get to talk to in a short space of time, grade 9 upwards, and just talked about this injustice, and there must be a better way, and that we needed to share our concern, and we needed to do a protest on the quadrangle after lunch hour had finished, before we went to the next period, so that the principal knew we were serious about this. I managed to get over 100 girls from across the grades to come to that protest. sit on the quadrangle and force the principal to come and talk to us and say, this is my concerns, mister. This is the name of the teacher. This is my concerns about your approach and how it's a violation of our privacy and how there must be a better way. And he listened. I think he was a bit irritated with me, but he did listen, and we came up with an alternative, and the girls on the parade were happy with that solution, and everyone went back to their class, and I'm like, that's good. All right. And then I worked with the principal to come up to implement another way that meant that people's privacy wasn't being infringed. Yeah, and I think that was very telling for where my career then went in terms of social justice. Yeah.
Absolutely. And well, congratulations on that. I think that's something really cool to put on your CV there. But yeah, you're right. Your career in social justice, you took it to another level and you founded a not-for-profit. And obviously you built this organization from the ground up, right? And that's not a small feat.
No. I was, at this time, I had finished uni and I'd left uni where I did marketing and HR and business management. And I really enjoyed the research side of the marketing. And a job came up to do research into the needs of young adults with disabilities when they left school. And we're talking about the very early 90s, where people with disabilities were not fully included in community. Institutionalisation was still happening. It was the cusp of deinstitutionalisation, so the movements around that were just starting to happen. And there were very little opportunities for young people when they left their special school to go to in terms of maintaining skills and continuing to develop and grow. So I took up this research role and I loved it. And part of that was going into the schools and talking to young people. And these were young people with varying levels of ability. So from people who were non-verbal and needed a lot of support to people who were very capable and very functional in their abilities in terms of the definitions that were there at the time. And I interviewed those, and it was absolutely gut-wrenching because so many of those young people didn't even know that at the end of that year they were leaving school. They thought that this would be there forever, and they felt really safe in that environment, and they had friends in that environment. And a lot of those young people didn't have the skills to build their own friendships. They need a lot of support to do that. So the idea of leaving that environment and starting over, like I had to do through school, really hard for them because they didn't have the skills, the social skills, just the abilities to be able to make those friendships. And when this shock that they were leaving school just broke my heart, and they didn't have dreams for themselves when they leave school. So I know when I left school, I had dreams of travel, of relationships, and getting married, and doing all the things that young people want to do, and they didn't have that. And in the research, neither did their families, because there was no great supports at those times. There was institutional type support, therapy centres, those sorts of things, but not the kind of support that help people live within community, belong to community, and develop and learn and grow and participate and contribute. And it just broke my heart. And so with that research, I took all of that and came up with a model of service that I thought was necessary and needed. I applied for funding and I got a 1 year non-recurrent grant to develop this service, but only 1 year, and depending on how that went, maybe get recurrent funding. So I took that funding and developed this service model, and then I was able to get recurrent funding for that service that supported young people with disabilities in post-school to live a life like any other young person, where they had the support and ability to contribute, to belong to community, to develop their skills, to learn, to build friendships, and to be part of community. Yeah, and it was wonderful. I loved it.
Absolutely, yeah. And good on you for obviously being selfless in that sort of regard. But during this time, obviously you're coming into, uncharted waters. There was probably not so many precedents in ahead of you that you could have copied, and this would have been the biggest test on your leadership skills. Could you maybe pinpoint to us some of the pivotal moments during this tenure with the not-for-profit that really defined your leadership?
Yeah, always the beginning. The beginning is always the pivotal moment, because you're working with stakeholders. If you have a not-for-profit that you want to engage with community and build community around, you're very much focused on making sure that you're including all the different stakeholders. So it's taking that leadership role about bringing those people together and then working together for the betterment of the people that you're there to serve. So that was a pivotal thing in terms of trying to get all people who maybe weren't always working together closely, who were maybe working more siloed, and bring them together for the common purpose. It was welcomed, but it was different. So that was a really good lesson in terms of engagement and inclusion again, and collaboration, and working together through differences and also through competition, because sometimes funding was quite competitive. And then you've got to attract people, attracting the right people to my organisation. And this is where I really started to learn very deeply about the importance of values, and not just words on a wall, but what's important to me about this organisation. And very much the organisation was a reflection of me, of my values, of what was important to me, because it's what we stood for and what we stood against, which was an alignment with who I was and what I was trying to build and create. So knowing those values and being able to then say, this is what those values look like in this organisation, and then using those to attract the right people to the organisation that would then support the young people to live those values as well. So it was a real ripple effect for me. It wasn't just values for me. It wasn't just values for the team. It wasn't just values for the organisation. It was values that would ripple effect into how the young people could show up for themselves and learn and grow and, be of community. And they then would take that into their community, in their volunteer work, in their work that they were doing, in their things that they were doing in community. Those values would then ripple through community. So it was a real, it just had a butterfly effect that was beyond me, but started with me being very clear about, well, what's most important here. Absolutely. In terms of what do I value. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a key moment in terms of attracting the right people and retaining them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I guess it's about that journey of the vision stuff I was talking about earlier, where we were talking about storytelling and building a vision that my team could see themselves in, and the families could see their young people in as well, because that was sometimes hard for them. They were very afraid for the safety of their young people and in their independence. So bringing them along for that journey. So it's all that inclusion, engagement, collaboration, consulting. Yeah, very key.
Absolutely. And that just does sound like a lot of work, because not only did you have to satisfy the funding part of you getting that and the stakeholders involved in making sure that you're having that, but you also had to extend your values and your energy to the families that you're talking about, and also the members of what, who were helping you in support of this. What really was in it for you?
What was in it for me? I never really looked at it from that perspective, I think I am very much of an in-service person, and I think what was in it for me was being able to really live in accordance with who I am. And I just adore seeing people step up and into who they can be and who they really want to be, and that sense of contribution and development. That I think that's what continues to drive me is people stepping up and into who they are, which builds their confidence, their competence, and then the effect they have on other people. That it's very rewarding being a leader in a not-for-profit organisation, and it's also very, very hard. And the rewards you do hope outweigh the hard, because it's a constant struggle for funding and all sorts of things, trying to avoid being a political pawn in some people's agendas as well. So it's for me, it was always seeing the outcomes for the young people and the life that they were living, and then the effect that had on their family. You know, families who would come to you and say, the doctors told us when they were born that we should just put them in an institution because there's nothing for them. And now they are travelling, you know, using public transport. They're holding down a volunteer job if they could. You know, some young people weren't able to get paid work, but they always did volunteer work, or they are holding down a job, or they're going to TAFE and learning something, and they've got friends of their own, and they're engaging in, you know, going out with their friends. You know, they're going to a nightclub when their brothers and sisters, you know, they're doing some stuff their brothers and sisters did. So having families turn around and tell you that that wasn't a vision that they held, that they thought that they would have to stop working and stay at home and look after their son or daughter, having that was just, it's well, what can compare to that? What better thing is in it for me than that? That impact on so many. It's awesome.
It does seem and sound like you were literally giving these people back to themselves. You know, if a doctor would have subscribed to them and say, you know, your life is, you know, relegated to this type of way, and you stand there and say, well, there is another way, and things of that nature. And
supporting the families and helping them to have dreams again. You know, that those families worked incredibly hard and loved incredibly hard and were there to help their young people be the best that they could be. But the ability to dream even bigger was sometimes very hard because it wasn't out there. So helping them to then take all that hard work that they did and all that love and all that they would, you know, dare to dream for that young person, and then help them get a bigger vision and be part of that. It was quite phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal. Sure. And I was very well supported. I had a wonderful team of people. And I think this is another thing in terms of the leadership stuff that it taught me is people stayed in my organisation. And if they didn't stay, it's because they weren't a good cultural fit. And that happened pretty quickly, and you'd know that pretty quickly. And I had people with us for, you know, the longest time, some people there for the 20 plus years that it ran. Yes, which is engagement, which is, you know, retaining good people and how to do that in a way that honours them, as you know, at the same time as supporting the young people that we supported.
Absolutely. But after 25 years, you decided that was it for you.
Yeah. Not an easy decision, but definitely a conscious decision. So the systems were changing, and the transition to the new system was not an easy one. Was not a well rolled out one in the very early stages, and it questioned our service model. It questioned the service model of individualised kind of support that is in and of community, not centre-based, not group-based. And the transition questioned that, and it was almost like, well, you need to change your service model in order to survive and to continue on this journey. And it was so philosophically opposed to everything we stood for and everything we worked really hard to support those young people to live and achieve. And it was very difficult, very difficult. So it was a combination of a philosophical, conscious decision alongside some very difficult fiscal decisions to wind it up. Yeah, very hard time. To do that respectfully for the young people and for our people. So again, another huge leadership learning experience around. Sometimes you have to do really hard things and it impacts on people, but there is a dignity and a way of doing that honours the people and doesn't damage them.
Absolutely. Now, we came across 16-year-old Katrina who rallied the troops and went to the school square. When that change was happening, did you feel the need to fight it, or did you just...
We did, yes. No, we fought it for quite some time. It was a hard fight through very many avenues, and there was, agreements and contracts and guidelines and things that weren't working in our favour as well. So it was a hard fight, and then it was a intentional decision when the fight seemed like it wasn't going to win.
Absolutely. See, if it is something...
Very hard time.
Absolutely. It's something that you've done for over 25 years, and I'm supposing it actually became your identity, and that now really constituted who you were. Like you said, most of the things were done around the values and the value system that you subscribed to. What was the process between you letting go and then you may be thinking of starting something new?
Yeah, so you've really hit the nerve there, Prosper, really hit the nerve. That was a tough time for Katrina, yeah. So this was because my identity was very much reflected in that organisation, and I was left with the, who am I now? Who am I now without being Katrina, the CEO, the leader, the social justice, all the things. Who am I without my organisation? Who am I without my team? Who am I without this cause and purpose that I'd invested so long in? And it was a hard one. And I have to tell you, in all honesty, I unravelled. I call it my great unravelling. And in the unravelling, I had to find a way to move forward. And it took me a little while. I think I actually felt like I hit the wall and I fell to the floor, and I realised I was burnt out, that I had really burnt myself out in the fight and in the long term and in the everything and in the giving. And then I had to go, well, who am I now? 3 steps I took, 3 steps. The first one is that I needed to rediscover. I had to rediscover, who am I? Who am I without all these things? Who am I without even my family identity in terms of being a mother, being a wife, being a sister, being a daughter, all those things. I had to strip all that away and go back to who am I, rediscover what are my strengths, what are my loves, what are my passions, what keeps me going, what has kept me going, what are those common threads throughout my life that I can anchor into. And then I had to rebuild. I had to rebuild in terms of reimagining what my future would look like, reimagining with all that I am, all that I know, all that I have, all that I've learned, what could I possibly do with it? And it became a voyage of possibility and creativity and deciding, well, if I had to do something, I can carve out that because I don't want to do that anymore, and I can focus on this because that's where I'm good at. And then I had to redesign, which was the third step. I had to get in, roll up my sleeves and do the work of redesigning what that looked like, which meant my business, my networks, the work that I do, creating, building that community around me once again, which fortunately is a strength that I have, and making those connections all over again. So it was a 3-part process. And along that process, I was grieving the loss of my father. I'm not a young woman, so I was going through all that change of life stuff. So there was a lot going on in that unraveling and rediscovering. So and I continue to be on that spiral of becoming. I'm still designing and building, which is quite joyful. Yeah.
Absolutely. See, I subscribe to the notion that you fall down 7 times, you stand up 8, no matter what it is. I'm supposing while you were on the ground, like you said, you did fall to the ground, you did look up to a new sky.
I did. And that's, NewSky Consulting was born long before that happened. I remember I started NewSky Consulting while I had my not-for-profit, and I had been on maternity leave, and I had just decided, what else can I do? So I said, I really like the auditing side of things. I really like helping other organisations grow and develop and step into the quality assurance systems that were happening and coming out in our sector at the time. So I started NewSky Consulting for that reason. So while I was on maternity leave, which I really didn't have a maternity leave, I don't know who I was kidding, that I could do this work. And I actually live in a street called NewSky, so I'm not very creative. That's where the name came from. And so I'll do NewSky Consulting. And I just had that kind of simmering on the side there while I was running my not-for-profit and helping other organisations, but stepped fully into it when I redesigned after the great unravelling of winding up my not-for-profit. Yeah, so it's still a journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. And now with NewSky, you're helping people to overcome the sort of challenges that you might have faced and to now really create a thriving business, and also finding balance. And you use business coaching as a vehicle that actually supports people's goals. Now, what sort of challenges are the people that you work with usually face? And how does your sort of coaching now address them?
Yeah. I particularly like working with female founders and women in business and leadership, and small to medium growing businesses. And it's really about those leaders, helping them to lead in a way that is genuine and authentic to them. And so that, because quite often those leaders, their business is a reflection and a vehicle of expression for them. So helping them to step into that without losing themselves like I did a little bit towards the end, and without losing and suffering in terms of their own health and well-being. And it's the things like creating and developing a great team around you, leading a team, having those structures in place that really support you and your business, and then stepping into your leadership competence and confidence to be able to lead those things. Yeah. So the things that I do is leadership coaching, team workshops and team dynamic and team culture, and I provide HR support, frameworks, policies and procedures and systems to support the good work that people do.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously you did mention the frameworks of what you're doing, but what sort of tools or methodologies are you using first of all, maybe to assess and then develop this leadership with team effectiveness that people can subscribe to?
Yeah, so I work with a tool of mine called the Legacy Leader Compass, and it's based on 3 key pillars. And the first one is authentic leadership. So being authentically you, which comes back to that core foundational stuff that almost where we started this morning, Prosper, What are your values? What are your strengths? What are your natural talents? What is your zone of genius? What is your purpose? And what is your blueprint for success? And then we look at, and the next pillar is around courageous connection. So that's about your people. So we move from self to people. And that is looking at your people's talents, tapping into their talents, leveraging from people's talents, building trust environments and safe environments for your people to collaborate in, and bringing them along for that journey. And then making sure those people are working collaboratively and are connected with each other, connected with the business, and connected with their clients to make that happen. And the final key pillar that I work with is all around integrity, ethical integrity, which is the systems, the structures, and the processes that support that. So that is around, doing your HR right, but doing it in a way that reflects your values and doing it in a way that supports your ethical integrity as a leader. They're the key principles, and that's the compass I use to help people in terms of building their legacy as a leader and leading in a way that is truly authentic to who they are.
Absolutely, because when you're approaching leadership, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with environments that if you're showing up and you're not in your true authentic self, then burnout might actually start showing up and
yes,
of that nature.
Yeah. And we see it all the time, don't we, Prosper? People who are burning out because they're incongruent with who they are. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, if somebody is looking at, maybe either changing their career or just to enhance what it is that they're doing, or to see if their team members are being the best that they can be, where would you suggest that they start, especially with the tools that you have, and how can they get a hold of them?
Excellent. Thank you, Prosper. There is a tool that's a really great starting point. It's called my Team Excel scorecard, and it helps people to get a really quick snapshot of where they are now in terms of 5 different key areas, vision, strategy, connection, 5, I can't remember the last 2 right now, but 5 key core areas that address how is my team now and how am I going and developing those people? What are the gaps? And then it gives you some really practical steps that you can start to take to close the gaps there and really start to build an excelling team. So that's a scorecard. It's free and it takes probably less than 5 minutes for somebody to do.
Absolutely. I'll definitely make sure that those links are in the show notes below, and you will be well placed if you're watching this right now to take this scorecard, because you'll be able to find the 5 areas that you need to focus on to help your team members be the best that they can be. So just check it out in the show notes below, and be sure check it out. Now, Katrina, from what I'm getting from you and everything else, I mean, your life story and your experience have so much to do with the person that you've become and who you are going to be. First of all of this is somehow intertwined, from the time you were growing up to what you're actually doing now. Now, are you still moving around like you were as a kid, or has that since?
No. So where I ended up was where my father retired. I met my husband in high school, grade 9 and 10, and we married. So I married my high school sweetheart. I built my dream home. I raised my 3 children, and I'm quite settled here in this community. I love my community. Yeah, and my brothers have done the same. So, and we still live very close to each other, and my mum's very close as well. Yeah. So, no, I'm not moving around. I love to travel, but I love to come home.
Absolutely, it's the completely opposite to how you grew up. And, that raises now the real theme as to what it is that you're actually doing. Most of what you're doing is really about legacy and legacy leadership, right? And I suppose all just comes together in one nice little bundle. Can you maybe explain what that means and why it's crucial in today's
Yeah.
business landscape?
Yeah. So to me, when I talk about legacy leadership, it's very much founded in the legacy of relationships. Your impact and influence on other people has a ripple effect. You may not be aware of it, but it will travel beyond you. And your ability to create those relationships, support those people, uplift and lead them, and help them step into the best people they can be, supported by great frameworks and systems, that is your legacy. It's not bricks and mortar. It's not the name of your service. It's your ability to influence and impact positively on the people that you're there to serve and support. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now, why is now the right time to invest in authentic leadership and team development?
Yeah. Trust is why. Trust. We are fast moving. We are fast moving in an AI world. We are fast moving in changes in leadership throughout the world, and trust is pivotal. You build trust by stepping into who you authentically are. People can feel fake. They really feel fake. And if they can't immediately see it, they sense it, and they can't put their finger on it, but they feel it. And trust is the key, because not much happens without it. Things happen faster when you have trust. Nothing else quite compares to it.
Absolutely. And what a way to conclude the show. But it would be remiss for me to not ask. I mean, we've taken a journey from where you've been, where you are currently, but what's next, Katrina?
What's next? Yeah. So I continue, like I said, I'm continue to evolve in my own NewSky Consulting journey, and I'm building on my coaching practices and programs, and having a focus on female founders and female leaders, and helping them to truly step into those authentic leadership spaces with practical tools and support to take that to their teams and to their organisations. And personally, well, my eldest son gets married next year, so all my kids are adults now, and I only have 2 at home, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing to build that relationship with my children and my future grandchildren that I'm sure will come. That's my big focus right now is those relationships and building the support for the female founders and women in business. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, Katrina,
sounds simple, but it's.
I can't thank you enough for sharing your profound journey and insights with us. I mean, your story is just a testament to the power of authentic leadership and the impact it has on leading with your own values. And thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me a platform and a voice to some of this stuff that I have not talked about in, I don't know, decades. So thank you, Prosper. That was an absolute joy.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate you making the Online Prosperity Show the place where you voiced some of these things. But to those that are watching right now, thank you too for coming along this journey. And if Katrina's journey resonated with you, or maybe you're navigating your own leadership challenges, I actually encourage you to engage with us. First of all, maybe in the comments below, share your thoughts and experiences, or maybe questions that you might have. And I think myself and Katrina would follow through and maybe answer the few things that you might have. But if your questions really are about your team and about your leadership, I will be putting in links for you to take Katrina's school cards that will really help you. The first one helps you find the 5 areas that you need to focus on in order to help your team members be the best that they can be. And then the other one I will be putting in, or just check out all of Katrina's resources at NewSky Consulting. I'll also be putting those links below, and the links to her LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And while you're here, I just want to applaud you for choosing you and also choosing the Online Prosperity Show, because if you stay tuned, in the next episode, we're going to be exploring ideas that can help enhance your well-being and happiness. And if you did find this discussion enjoyable today, please share this podcast with somebody who could benefit from having a team that actually works with them and also that can be the best people that they can be. And yeah, I can't thank you enough for the time that you have taken with us today, Katrina, and also to our viewers. Just take the first step towards transforming your team and organization today. I can't thank you enough. Bye for now.